Given the increased number of threats against MPs, what level of responsibility do you take for the toxic atmosphere facing parliamentarians, and what will you do to lower the temperature?
Good question.
We are seeing all around the world, in all of our democracies, an increase in polarization, an increase in the divisiveness, and indeed more and more extremist voices slipping into political conversations at a time when democracy seems to be backsliding around the world. That is why it is incumbent on every politician, every leader, to take on their responsibilities about trying to bring people together and trying to solve the challenges that are out there.
That wasn't the question.
Which makes it so completely irresponsible that in all the hubbub in the House this week, people are overlooking the fact that the leader of the official opposition refuses to condemn a violent, anti-government, white nationalist organization like Diagolon. He will not come out and condemn them and what they stand for. And when you have leaders trying to reach out to bring in voices like that, when he refuses to reject the endorsement of Alex Jones, proven liar and conspiracy theorist
Why is
in the
he
United
so
States
mad
who
over all of
actually
this?
denied that 20 little kids were killed at Sandy Hook and had to pay hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in reparations for those lies. He's the kind of person that Pierre Poilievre is accepting endorsements from. There is a choice leaders have to make about what they stand for and who they stand with. And every step of the way, I have chosen to stand with Canadians.
If podcasters say they like somebody,
Canadians,
what is he supposed to say?
And to do everything
Go
I
on
can
their
to push
podcast
back
and be like, no, you're not allowed to
those who would
say
harm
you like me on
Canada
your podcast.
with their
What is he supposed to do?
or with their words.
Joe Rogan on his
It's time
podcast
for
said he
Pierre
likes Pierre.
Poilievre to do the same.
Like,
Next question.
So the foreign interference inquiry results just came out, and they found that while it didn't affect the election results, it did undermine Canadians' trust in our democracy. Hogue found the greatest impact of foreign interference, or did your government unwillingness to call for an inquiry contribute to that?
This government, since 2015, has put forward more measures than any previous government, which has never put forward measures to counter foreign interference. We put forward a number of different bodies, including an elections oversight body that can say with confidence that the 2019 and 2021 elections were in fact decided by Canadians, despite ongoing foreign interference activities from various countries. And the work that the Commission is doing is very, very important in two ways, both to make sure that we are continuing to develop and improve our tools to counter the foreign interference by countries that want to either undermine our democracy or undermine democracy as a whole, but also reassure Canadians about the things that are being done to ensure that Canadian elections are decided by Canadians. So I thank the Commissioner for the interim report, and we'll continue to work with the Commissioner and the Foreign Interference Inquiry over the coming months on the next phases of their work.
If we could go back to the housing crisis that we're in now, just sort of as an overview, I wanted to run this past you. In 2015, when you became Prime Minister, the average house in Hamilton was about $334,000. 2024, it's $850,000, beyond the reach of many people. What happened? How did governments let this happen?
Boy, we could talk about the global economy, the inflation crisis that came from the fact that we had a once-in-a-century pandemic that had a huge impact on all of our lives.
He's going to say everything but
We
him.
could talk about the labor shortages that we're facing that continue to mean we need to grow our population. We're continue to talk about inflation crisis around the world that has led to higher interest rates that have slowed things down. We can talk about the fact that Canada has only about 4% affordable housing stock across the country, whereas comparable countries like France or the UK have in the range of 17 or 18% affordable housing. Decisions taken by governments of all stripes
But
over
you said housing
decades
isn't your problem.
have led to this moment. Particularly the previous government in which Pierre Poilievre was
now let's
actually
blame
housing
Harper.
minister, that explicitly said the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with building affordable housing or creating affordable housing. It's not rocket science to see that decisions, particularly in something like a housing market, that are taken years ago have impacts for years, for decades, for generations to come.
Rocket science, you could
So
not
the
handle.
question we have to ask is, given absolutely the fact that there is a crisis in housing right now, and that crisis is best defined by the fact that these young people who are working incredibly hard, many of them at great jobs, don't have the same opportunities that Canadians in their position just
See the
20 years
person in
ago
the back laughing?
would
See
have
the
to
girl
be
in
able
the
to buy a
back
home.
laughing?
There's something wrong
See the
with
girl
the
in
way
the back
system
just
is
dying
built.
laughing?
So the question Canadians should ask themselves, or the way the system has evolved, question people should ask themselves is, who's going to fix that system? Who has a plan to actually fix that system? Now, let's take a very simple example to contrast the Conservative and the federal Liberals' plan. The Conservatives have said we should use public land, sell it to the highest bidder so that they can create housing on it.
Yep.
Which sounds, at the surface of it, like
Get rid of the
that's
CBC.
a reasonable thought.
Get rid
Bring
of
in
the
a little more money
CBC.
for government coffers and get some more housing built. Except if you're selling public land to the highest bidder, that developer who bought that land at top dollar is not going to be building affordable housing on it, not going to be building affordable rentals on it. And that's the fundamental
just make
problem
it a
with the approach
condition.
the Conservatives continue to take. That they think if you give tax breaks and advantages and benefits to the wealthiest, it'll all trickle down to everyone else. Except it doesn't, it never has. So our approach on that exact same
are the
problem
wealthiest.
is to say, let's actually take that public land
You're worth like $90 million.
and lease it for 99 years to developers or nonprofits who then won't have had to pay much for the land and can then build affordable homes, particularly because we'll force them to build affordable housing.
You'll force
on those
them.
lands.
You will force
That's
people.
a way
Do we
of
hear
solving
this guy?
a piece of the housing crisis. Choosing to invest in cities' abilities to increase densification and accelerate the construction of housing with a $4 billion fund. That's our approach to work with cities to solve the housing crisis. Mr. Poilievre's approach on that is to cross his arms and say, not only are we not sending you the Housing Accelerator Fund money, we won't send you any other money unless you figure out how to solve the housing crisis on your own.
That's the city's
Is
job.
that how you're going to solve the housing crisis? No.
Yes,
it's an
you let the city do
unreasonable
its job,
plan that is focused
and you don't
on
force them or tell
actually
them what
having
to do.
government do less
That's what a mayor gets
to
elected
help
for.
Canadians to invest in the future. And that's even more nonsensical as an approach, given the fact that the entire core message of the Conservative Party of Canada is that somehow Canada is broken and the investments this government has made over the past years has rendered us into a horrific fiscal position.
Yeah, it has.
Well, the reality is, yes, Canadians are squeezed right now.
Yeah,
but
you
that's
squeezed us.
Why it is important for governments to step up
No,
on things
no,
like
for you to
free
step
dental
down.
care for
Step
seniors,
down. Get out of here.
cutting childcare fees in half, delivering free insulin and free prescription contraceptives. stepping up with programs that bring in global investments, whether it's Stellantis or Volkswagen or Honda or what have you, right
Or
across the
Charity
country.
or McKinsey.
These are decisions we're taking because we can, because Canada, despite what Mr. Poilievre has the best fiscal position in the G7, the lowest deficit, the lowest debt to GDP ratio, the size of our debt as proportion to the size of our economy is lowest and getting lower.
You think we have a stronger economy than the
Moody's
United
yesterday,
States?
one of the independent bond rating agencies, so you don't have to take my word for it, you don't have to take his word for it,
wow.
you can
Let's
look
listen
to
to
the
Moody's.
experts, has said Canada has confirmed its AAA rating. We are the third largest economy in the world after the US and Germany with a AAA credit rating. It means we have a responsible plan even with, or perhaps because of, all the investments we're making in supporting Canadians through this. So when Pierre Poilievre throws up his hand and says, everything's broken, we should just be really mad,
He's so mad at Pierre.
without actually offering any solutions for these young people, while he continues to play footsie with extremist white nationalist organizations, you begin to see the kind of unreasonable leadership that he's proposing.
See the people in the background here just looking around going, what the hell?
Thanks for that. So,
Bit of a rant.
Yeah, you ranted. Yep.
just as a follow-up, with federal programs, provincial programs, and municipal programs, how long is it going to take to get out of this, to reach the point where we were 2010 or so, where someone with a job and a little bit of savings for a down payment can
good
actually
question.
buy a home?
We project that our investments and our comprehensive and ambitious housing plan, the most comprehensive and ambitious plan that Canada has ever seen, will contribute to creating close to 4 million new homes over the coming decade or so, over the coming years, less than a decade. That is going to, we're going to see real changes. When we announced cutting of the GST on purpose-built rentals, within a couple of days, a whole bunch of different companies across the country put up their hands and said, okay, we can now build thousands more purpose-built rentals because of this change that makes the math work. And similarly, across the board, what we're doing is resulting in building more homes, delivering more supply, particularly affordable supplies. So the big change is that young people that I spoke with who right now are saying, I don't even think I'll ever be able to afford a home, will suddenly say, okay, I now see that there's a path for me to be able to buy a home. Maybe not right now, maybe not this coming summer,
maybe not ever until you get out of office.
But in the coming years, this is going to change. And this is as much about building that optimism again that young people need to have in the future of the country, which is part of why we made the decision to ask the wealthiest, often of older generations, whose money works for them, instead of necessarily them working as hard as these young people are for their money, for their salaries. We've raised the capital gain inclusion rate to make sure that the people who've done the best over the past years in a society and an economy that is tilted slightly towards them actually gets retilted a bit more towards the young people we need to continue to grow our economy long into the future.
I wanted to first ask about the campus protests that we're seeing regarding the Israel-Hamas war. They're growing at universities. We've seen them prop up recently at University of Toronto encampments. Premier Legault has called for police to remove them in McGill. Do you support these encampments staying on campus?
I think we have to remember what universities are. Universities are places of learning. Universities are places where the freedom of speech, the freedom of ideas, the challenge of debate, of dialogue, of discussion about how to shape the world, how to see the world, how to go on out after university or college and lead the world, are a core part of what campuses are all about. At the same time, we need to make sure that as part of that, everyone can feel safe on campus.
What does that have to do with the protest?
Jewish student, whether you're Palestinian, whether you have strong feelings on one side or the other.
Jeez, it took you a while
and
to get
on
there.
that, we have to trust both universities to manage their campuses right and local police of jurisdiction to do their work to make sure that everyone is safe.
Follow up?
So I take it, do you just think the police should decide whether they should be removed or not? Are you concerned about violence, as we've seen in the United States, a conflict between different sides? It sounds like you don't really want to weigh in one way or another about whether they should stay.
Well, I have been weighing in on this issue of the angst, the anguish, the anger, the fear that Canadians have been feeling for months and months and months since
The only thing you weigh
the October
is weighing
7th
down this country.
attacks that have led to feelings of deep uncertainty in the Jewish community around the rise of anti-Semitism, but also deep, deep concerns amongst the Muslim communities around the humanitarian catastrophe that's going on in Gaza right now, and the rise in Islamophobia. These are things that are challenging for a diverse and pluralistic society like Canada to deal with, but we must, and we do that through conversations, we do that through making sure that everyone is protected, that laws are enforced, that people take on their responsibilities to create spaces for conversation in which everyone can feel safe. And nowhere is that more important, that everyone can feel safe, having a full range of conversations and debate and dialogue and challenges.
Dude, you're just spewing
Then on
bullshit.
university and college campus.
You're not even answering the question. You just spewed a bunch of bullshit.
Samantha Beattie with CBC. And can I get the answers in both French and English, please? The Premier of Ontario is against the decriminalization of drugs in his province. Given that, is there any way that the City of Toronto's application for exemption will be approved?
The City of Toronto has no active application right now, so there's nothing to consider.
Health Canada is reviewing BC's request for a ban of drug use in public spaces. Given how serious the problem is, how urgent is it for that request to be approved?
We have, from the very beginning, worked closely with the government of British Columbia as they wanted to move forward on a pilot project. We've continue to work with them as they are asking to modify that pilot project. We will do so in alignment with them and work with them on making sure that it's done right. This is a serious crisis faced by communities and individuals right across this country. We're always going to be there to work in responsible, fact-based, compassion-grounded ways on this public health crisis as a public health crisis in ways that are right for every jurisdiction and led by every jurisdiction. Et en français,
I can't get a plastic straw, but they can get crack cocaine and heroin?
de Toronto, alors il y a
Does that
rien
make
à
any
considérer.
sense?
Et on va toujours être là pour travailler avec les communautés, deal with the